G'day, listeners. This episode is proudly brought to you by our major sponsor, supshq.com.au. Use code BENS15 at checkout to receive 15% off on your next purchase. G'day, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Matter Mentality podcast, where we talk all things training, nutrition, psychology to optimize your performance. Today, I am joined by a very good friend and colleague, if you will, in the industry. Big Tommy Fox from the Sanctuary of Strength. How are we doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Pleasure to be here. Honored to be on a podcast where you've had some pretty awesome guests on. So,
Mate, I said to Brooklyn when we were talking, I'm like, I have set the stupidest bar for myself ever, because it's like you go from like Olympic coaches and VPs of ISSN, and I'm like, how do I top that? Like, it's like when you get a movie, like, it's like a trilogy, and it's like you've nailed the movie the first time. Well, now it's just, you can't get any better.
it's just like canon and filler, bro. I'm just that filler episode.
Not even at all. Like, we've been trying to tee up this chat for fucking ever. But mate, what I really want to get into, what I really want to dive into is obviously your background nutrition, as we sort of talked off camera before, your background nutrition, your coaching practices, where you are now, and kind of like your explosion in natty coaching. We've seen a I've seen a very big upward trajectory of yourself in the natty coaching realm, which is always awesome to see. A big premise of what we do on Bros with Brains on this podcast, on my own content, is trying to put out informative and science-based education to the client, to the listener, to the viewer, just to get rid of the myths and the bullshit and stuff that's out there, right? So, seeing people actually start to take off with that evidence-based background is something to me that I think is important in our game. So, what I kind of want to get into there is just, where it started, your background, getting into Tom Fox Nutrition, getting all into it, up in your business.
Well, basically I've been a coach for almost 10 years now. I think this is pretty much my 10th year of coaching.
Hey, long service.
Yeah. So I mentored under a couple of people, and then decided to go out on my own. I learned some good things. I learned some not so good things. I learned some things of the way that I want to kind of approach things and approach different people. I then decided to go and study X science and do a dual degree with teaching as well. So I was do PE and science. They were my two teaching subjects. But work just kind of kept sort of going from strength to strength, and just continued to fall more in love with the nutrition side of things. So ended up leaving the teaching side of things, finishing a grad dip through the Institute of Performance Nutrition. And now I'm currently enrolled to do a grad dip in human nutrition, and then go on to do my master's at Deakin University.
Awesome.
So so coaching's kind of just really sort of taken over. Like, I'm not generally your sort of bodybuilding sort of coach by look. I kind of ended up in this thing just from helping out people just in the gym, and trying to help other trainers, and trying to be a bit of a mentor to the guys sort of coming up. What that sort of did, it just allowed me to coach more serious people, more people who are just willing to do what they need to do. And then things just kind of got a bit of a snowball effect. Once I kind of took my first client through a prep, basically he sort of came to me about 8 weeks out from a first season, and wasn't quite where he needed to be. So I said, I recommend that you don't do it this year. I reckon you do it the following season. Because when it comes to this sort of stuff, time is your best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, the stage will always be there.
Yeah.
You got to put yourself in a position where you're actually going to do well.
Yep.
So he competed. It was my first client going through any sort of bodybuilding competition, and that was a steep learning curve. He did very well though. He placed in every division that we entered him into. But it was just one of these things that once you do one, all of a sudden someone else wants to do it.
Yeah.
And then you start getting seeked out. And, I took one of my other long-term clients, who's a coach himself, Messiah Kefu, through. And top 3 placings in pretty much every division. And just a super, super great physique. And again, it was just another learning curve.
Yeah.
So every time I've taken someone through, things always haven't been perfect, and
Mm-hmm.
they never really will be when you're
Yeah.
working in these sort of high pressure sort of situations. But I've been lucky enough to take some people through, do quite well with them, and then be able to kind of learn from that experience and be able to come up with new methods as well, and new standards that
Mm-hmm.
you learn as you kind of go through it. Otherwise, if you don't do it yourself, or you don't take anyone through it, you just kind of don't know what you're really looking for.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's just kind of been this snowball effect that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
My business partner, Jazz Patterson,
Mm-hmm.
she's prepped a lot of girls as well, and I was mentoring her for a while, and we decided to join forces with my partner Natasha Hogan and
Mm-hmm.
make a brand umbrella and called it
Mm-hmm.
the Performance Formula. So we're looking at just building that out now, and that's kind of the next step in all of our careers.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I mean, even to like just to combine, like you can see the irony of your name in that the performance formula is going to be a formula you keep working out. Like, and every coach needs to know that, is that, we both know there's coaches in and amongst this game that will claim to have the formula or the equation or it figured out. And, to a degree, sure, we know the nuances and we can understand the basics and we can understand a lot of the strategies and systems. Like, we want to be losing 0.5% per week. We want to be at this rate of loss. We want to hit these calories so that you can be progressing and maintaining muscle tissue and yada, yada. But at a certain point, everyone is individually nuanced and they are arbitrarily different and subjectively going to respond differently. So, the very ironic thing that is also almost the positive thing to you, even the brand name in general as a company, is going to be the fact that the performance formula for each one of you is very different, right?
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things like, there are like Australia has some amazing coaches,
Oh, absolutely.
100% some amazing coaches and guys who really, really know their stuff. But I don't think even they're arrogant enough to say that they 100% know everything. And they're continually growing. They're continually working new ways out. So, as coaches who are stepping into this sort of field, you've got to really consistently have a student mentality.
Oh, yeah.
Like, every person will have their own trends. Every person will drop on certain types of exercise regime, cardio, calories, everything. Everyone's that little bit different, and it's all about just trying to pick up trends in people.
Yep.
It's the same thing in growing phases. Some people don't have to do a whole heap, and they can just recover and get back into the gym, and they just keep growing. Other guys, they need a little bit more, and they have to grind a little bit more. So it's just working out those trends for the said individual, which is so important.
Yeah, I think it's an important takeaway to understand, is that us as, I would say, good coaches, I would hope, is the recognition that we can have systems, we can have processes, we can have procedures, right? Like, I know when I map out a program, a prep or a periodization phase, I can put it into 12 months, what that might look like and how that goes. But at the end of the day, that also needs to be flexible. I also need to look down and break it down to the smallest detail of the person and go, well, on paper, this should occur. But that, we're 3 months into this phase or 3 months into, and it didn't occur. This isn't what happened. Now I need to modify and mitigate based on her responses, based on her body type, based on her, her responses. When I say body type, I'm not talking about meso, masso, that sort of shit. Just like her physiological body type.
I can't grow.
Yeah. I'm an ecto, mate. Like, I need 10,000 calories. Okay, just give me one day. Give me a week at 3,000. We'll see there. But, and that's an important aspect to consider, is that it's kind of like a long-winded ramble, I guess, that I see a lot of people trying to take like 50, 60, 70, 80 clients. And you're like, when I see that number, I'm like, okay, and very likely you could be doing this, but are you individually assessing that person enough where, we're making those nuanced changes? This person might only need certain amounts of food. This person didn't respond to the periodization we mapped out. Well, am I stepping in and changing that? Am I assessing the volume? Are we increasing set markers? Are we, X, Y, Z? That needs to be assessed by us as a coach in the moment, in our check-ins, in our weekly assessments, when we're looking at them, right? And I feel a lot of the time we understand that, but is it happening? And it's great to have systems and processes, but like I was saying, you break that down to the smallest possible nuance. Life happens to people, and what should be occurring versus what does occur isn't always the same thing.
Absolutely, man. And what is like considered optimal for someone is not optimal for the other person. Like, we know what's optimal when it comes to someone's life, and we know certain amounts of training can be the most optimal. if someone's lifestyle or their stress outside of gym and
Mm-hmm.
training is higher, they're not
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to push to that. So how can we as coaches alter that?
Yep.
And if you have someone who's high stress,
Mm-hmm.
they have some form of, anxiety even. Like you can't push them the way in the gym like you could someone who sits on a beach all day,
Yep.
is getting 9 hours and 10 hours sleep, can
Mm-hmm.
eat 4,500 calories, they go for a swim at lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah, completely right. And that then completely alters how we have to approach their methodology, their programming, their recovery, their metrics, their lifestyle. Like all these things have to come into play that, it's important to consider and understand. Like if you're a coming up coach, it's important to understand because though we aren't clinically registered by any means, and I mean this from someone who's studying psych, it is important to understand that you almost fall on the role of someone's almost life coach when you really start taking a hold of preps in people's lives, and you're in charge of their progression rates and you're in charge of their food timing. You're like, hey, look, I want this to occur across a day. You've also got to be considerate of the fact that you're probably going to be dealing with or trying to manipulate a lot of their stress problems, a lot of their stress markers and their metrics and like their overall mental capacity of their life. Like we get into that point where, okay, so are you taking self-care days? Are we doing journaling? Are we doing these things? Are you mentally taking care of yourself? You almost become that role, right? Like I've found myself, obviously with what I study, I guess that's kind of who I attract. But when you really step into it, we become that holistic coach because so much about life, or if you're really trying to optimize a prep, you are optimizing someone's life, or you at
Absolutely.
least it needs to be in order to get on there with the best possible look.
And I think as well, like being honest with someone before they even start prep of
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like your life is not set up to do what
Yep.
you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might think, oh yeah, 26 weeks out or 20 weeks out or whenever you start your prep, and the first 4 weeks are like, oh, this is easy. This is
Yeah.
no worries.
Yeah.
And you're trimming up that little bit of puppy fat already. You're starting to get
Yeah.
some lines coming through and you're like, piece of cake.
Yeah.
If your life's too stressful, and you don't have things set up or you haven't spoken to someone about managing your stress or
Mm-hmm.
understand yourself well enough that you know what you're going to do when you start getting stressed,
Mm-hmm.
then those things are going to fall apart when
Yep.
you're 10, 8, 6 weeks out. And that's
100%.
where people don't make it,
Yep.
where they're better off just going, hey, let me take 6 months of,
Mm-hmm.
let me go speak to someone, let me go
Yep.
work out what I actually need to do. And if you love it enough, and if you're passionate enough
Yeah.
about the sport, you'll take that time to do that.
Yeah.
Because the problem is with some people is they're like, oh, I want to jump on stage. And you're like, well,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Why? Oh, I think it'd be a cool challenge. Is that enough?
Yeah.
You just want to put it on your social media? Or do you
Yeah.
love the sport?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the difference. That's the difference between the guys who do exceptionally well and the guys that just get up and jump on stage.
Yeah. And that I think is, another key takeaway for future coaches listening or current coaches listening that aren't quite aware. It's what we call Socratic questioning. We're trying to get to the basis of the problem. We're trying to get to the root cause to make you think. So we're invoking what we call the three whys, the three levels of why. Every time someone gives me a goal, I'll ask why 3 times after they've made a statement. Because what we're trying to do is evoke from them what that deeper meaning, like make you actually think about what you're saying, think about the question itself, think about your reality, think about life, and then think about that answer be under that. Because that's going to dictate to us a lot more than, I really want to get shredded. I want to get on stage. Do you actually, or are you just like, a little bit insecure or a little bit unconfident in the chub you've put on as a dad or a mom, or, corporate life's taken over your lifestyle and now you want to get healthier again, but your best friend's dad's uncle's son's nephew did a prep once and he looked great. So you're like, I can do that, forgetting that you're now 35 with 3 kids, or you're 25 with the idea of still going out each weekend and also drinking and partying and drugs and then competing. So, really getting to that bottom of a question with a client, never take that surface goal as what the true goal actually is. Sitting with them and actually exploring, what does this mean to you to achieve? Because when the shit gets dark, and I mean, it gets dark, it's fun to me. I'm a little bit fucked up that way, but like to the average person who's like, holy shit, I've never done extreme focus before. I've never really like played a lifelong sport before or committed to a passion before. The darkness and loneliness that you feel in isolation gets pretty heavy. So you need to know that I'm doing this for something more than just Instagram photos or validation, or, to get my ex's ex, this guy, jealous of me because he's now dating my ex-girlfriend, and all those little superficial shit that it's like, that's not enough.
And it's not a sport where you get that weekly success, really. I was
Yes.
speaking to
Yes.
this with a client, like you don't put in a week's worth of training and then get on the football field and score in the 70th minute,
Yep.
or kick a field goal to win the game,
Yep.
or you know what I mean? You don't get that weekly celebration,
Mm-hmm.
and camaraderie around other
Yeah.
people. It can be a really lonely
Mm-hmm.
sport if you don't have a team around you, and you don't have that, especially like for guys who are trying to put on stuff in the off season, especially
Mm-hmm.
as a national. One of my guys, he's going from fitness and he wants to compete at classic. As a natural, that's a in the trenches couple of years to put on
Oh
some
yeah.
issue in order to do that. So you don't get this constant external validation or success that comes with weekly sort of stuff with other sports.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to like something like a combat sport, even, you don't have those little wins in sparring, or,
Yeah.
those sort of things that come up. It's like training for the Olympics for some people.
Yeah.
And you're constantly on the grind,
Mm-hmm.
till you get to that one day.
Yeah. And no one knows who you are until it's time to really be on show, or like you start all of a sudden you're a bit more confident in yourself. So the media starts coming out and shirts off a bit more and stuff like that, or the glutes come out a bit more. Then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, when's your next show? And you get that bit of reinforcement. But the
Absolutely.
2 to 3 years behind the scenes where everyone's like, well, you're getting fat or you're just getting soft. Or I thought you used to be ripped.
And that's what you had to do.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
you were just like head down, ass up on the
Yep.
bulk for 2 years, was it? 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a hefty time. Like give or take, there was or 2 attempted preps in there, but each time because it pulled out, went back to growing because it was like, well, again, the big C can't do the show. There's no point spending more time here. Let's get lean enough to rebound out. Again, let's do it again. Same thing. Okay, let's grow again. All that overall led to like 3 years of realistically growing because it couldn't happen. So, we got realistically about probably 2 years of true growth, give or take the year in between of like total cutting time. But again, that was, behind the scenes where not that people were like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, or, you're just getting fat now, but they kind of were. Like it gets to that point where you just got to accept that when it's not time to be in the limelight, it goes. You aren't important. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to go, like you said, unlike other sports where it's like, oh, when's the next game? Where are you playing? I want to come watch. It's like, man, the next game's 2 years away. The next
Yeah,
game is a year's time away before I even start prepping for the 6 months after. So,
and hitting little PBs in the gym is awesome, but for some people, like that's not enough. That's why you see some people, they just jump on stage every year,
yeah.
They never get anywhere.
I mean, I've like even looking at the research, and especially as I've had this debate a couple of times, like coaches who aren't aware in the natty realm, they'll make arguments against like, it's a bit of a taboo topic, or people that have their little stabs and their jabs that enhanced guys have it easier, or we're just doing this to cheat and get away with it or whatever. But if you're someone doing back-to-back seasons as a natty, it can take anywhere up to 6 to 8 months for your testosterone levels and your HPG to go from depreciated to only back to normal function before you're realistically getting to a point where you're actually able to grow muscle and effectively recover and have all the benefits of testosterone. It could take 6 to 8 months. So if you're doing back-to-back seasons because you're seeking that validation, or you're seeking that surface level sense of achievement, you're putting your body through fucking hell for next to no benefit. You see those guys get on the natty stage again and again. It's realistically looking the same, not making any true strides or progress because they haven't accepted that, hey, I may have to take that 2 years off, right? Like I may have to take that time to focus on life, focus on my systems, focus on my processes, my mental health, get my life in check to then really nail the next show.
Absolutely. And like, I think one thing you kind of talked about then was like skills, like systems and skills, like learning how to go out, enjoy food with family and friends without going overboard, learning how to be flexible while still hitting. Like people underestimate how important that is. Like, okay, here's your meal plan, follow this for your prep. Great, cool. People can do that. But if you want long-term success and longevity, you need to be able to mix with friends and family. You need to be able to do other things in your life because If you're just solely focused on that one thing of, oh, this is my meal plan, that's where stuff becomes really
Yep.
unhealthy. And I don't think there's many coaches in any realm that would consider getting down to sub 5% body fat as healthy. So
They
like,
should.
yeah, if you don't really love the sport,
Yeah.
you can't, your body, your brain, everything is going to fight against you.
Mm-hmm.
So, you really do have to be passionate about it to be successful, especially if you want to do repeating shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even to expand on that further in terms of terms of skills, is this is a so I find it a bit different, right? Where in the sense where people, when we play other sports, we have very tangible skills: kicking, passing, tackling, sprinting, agility. Like you have tangible skills that you're like, I can improve on this. What people fail to understand or misappropriate is these things they call neurotic, these things they call narcissisms, these things they call like distorted behaviors. They're learned through exposed developmental processes. And it's not that they're neurotic. I'm not saying you learn neuroticism. I'm saying more so when it's done properly, we're learning these skills to then be able to apply them when necessary. It becomes another tool in the arsenal. It becomes another tool on your belt, because you can then go and it's taken me a long time to get to this point myself. It takes my clients a long time. I work with them through it. Is what's it like at this level of calories? What's it like at this surplus? What's it like at this deficit? What are the strategies when I get this hungry? What are the ways I can avoid this by being this hungry? Things that people don't even consider bodybuilding or just generally nutritionally or coaching related, like to even go away from bodybuilding, just things that are generally good coaching result related, is the ability to learn how to say no, develop a backbone, develop some self-confidence, reduce insecurity. People that a lot of the clients that I've sort of had where they've struggled with, friendships or relationships, is because they've been heavily involved in being a yes person, and they struggle as a person to individually say no to that scenario because XYZ friends might hate me or not like me as much, or I need to be around them to socialize. Like, well, hang on, if we've got this extreme goal, if we've got any goal, your friend should be supporting you, as opposed, and that's a learned skill, right? Like having that ability as a skill as a client is almost imperative to succeeding in the result. But like I said, I find that a lot of people struggle. I'm misunderstanding that those are skills that take time to learn. If you haven't got them already, if you're not a very forward person or a blunt person, having those lifestyle skills, they're learned a little bit differently to say your tangible rugby or soccer or AFL skills. But in any coaching practice, our skill development for people is very mental.
I think as well, like relating it back to other sports, when you look at, amateur bodybuilding versus amateur rugby or amateur anything, the lifestyle is so different.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like you can, what happens after a Saturday afternoon game with the lads? Everyone gets on it. They all go out.
If you're anything below A grade, shit faced.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And even then, man, even then in like state competitions and stuff, the lads still get on it after,
Yep.
and they still head out, especially if they're young, man. Like it's just what they do. It's almost like their rite of passage. If you're trying to like break into that pro level, yeah, people will take it more seriously and they will say no to those things because it's important, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Even if you want to be a good amateur natty, like you have to put in those hard yards. You have to be able to say no to those things. Like you're not just gonna switch it on and prep. You've got nothing to rely on besides the hard work and the skills that you've built up before you even start prep.
Yep.
And that probably leads us to another sort of conversation is people who are like, oh, this would be cool. I want to start prep. Hey,
yeah,
man, you've got 20% body weight at least to lose. Like I've done that with clients where I've taken them from 20% body weight needed to loss to stage, and it sucks. I hate it. I would like, unless there's a really good reason to do it, I won't do it anymore.
Yeah,
because you just run out of runway.
Yep.
So being in a position to even start prep, people don't understand either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point to even understand. There is that the stark contrast between, we say we look at off season, say other sports versus ours in the sense of, well, doing it or coaching it. The getting ready phase, an off season for your general sport that is literally like they're priming you for, you know, you don't train as hard, but you train pretty hard. You've got some like more lax days. There's no games coming up. There's nothing important. So like usually it's like cardio, or generally when I was S&C for sports teams, it was kind of like you taper down your cardio intensity as skills are required to start coming up. You get drills and that as the season starts to premise. But the guys are still going out and doing shit. Like you're never going to control young lads from going to do dumb shit, like you're saying. But for us, getting your life sorted before you start a prep, especially as a natty, every single detail matters. Like every single minute detail starts to add up, because that 1% matters to you, because you can't out drug it. You can't out lipolytic it. You can't out clen it. You can't, I'm going to take some DMP, or I'm going to take T4 and T3. Like you can't do that. The mistake can't be covered up, because it's going to take everything you have that you thought you had plus more just to be, I'm ready to now succeed at this if I choose to keep going. And that's like you said, such a strong, long-winded point that people will struggle to grasp, I guess, is that I guess you'd almost put it down to the fact that the prep and stage time is what's sexualized the most. It's what showed off the most. It's what it's most polarized. It's the most captivating.
Well, it's the end result. It's
exactly.
It's show day. Like,
yeah.
It's 47 weeks till show day. It's whatever, you know what I mean? There's that countdown that's on. Every federation does it. 2 weeks till show day, 1 week till show day. Like that's what everybody.
There's no federation talking about off seasons. Okay, guys, season's over. You all did yourselves proud. Now go away and grow and come back in 2 years' time. It's when you're back next. When can I see you again? When are you going to be here? It's like that lure that they just throw out. And don't get me wrong, I get it. It's a business, and it's like I love bodybuilding. But like you said, people just then see that and they're like, oh, this only took someone 20 weeks. Well, no. Hold on. This took this person who's taken how long to get their life set up, and their muscle grown and their muscle belly's full, and actually trained to some development, to skill, to handle dietary phases, to handle low calories, to mentally handle the insecurities, the self-doubts, the criticism. That's taken them 20 weeks for that show. But you're not looking at the 24 months before that, or the 18 months before that. You're just seeing the sexualized part where they started showing themselves off. And this is something we try to do as a business, is heavily open transparency, so that you actually see, like, I am soft as fuck right now. This is me at 102. I'm like 16 kilos up from stage weight, but I've tracked it, controlled it, and done it slowly. But that now gets me to 105, 110. When I cut again, and the next time I come down for show, it's going to be a very different ball game, because I've got a lot more mass, a lot more, like, my training intensity is different. My programming is different. My body's responding different. My titrations of supplementation are different. That's going to take years of work.
Absolutely.
We try to make sure that that's open and people understand it, because so when you come to me as a client, you're not just seeing the 20-week preps from all my guys that are doing well. You're seeing off seasons. You're seeing growth phases. You're seeing lifestyle clients. There's 100 different things versus I take 20-week preps.
100%, man. And that's kind of what suckers people into that. Oh, well, I'm just going to start prep. I'll chat to this coach, and in 2 weeks we start. As you mentioned with your off season, like, you'll have different phases through there, and then before you start prep, you'll have a little mini prep to get you in a position to prep.
Yep.
That's the one thing, and you'll give yourself enough time. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, you can throw everything you want at it, but if you don't give yourself enough time and be in a position where you can give yourself enough time, you won't present the look that you want.
I guess, like, given this is, a chat realistically about you and about this, your business and your processes, what do you look for in a client? Like, let's say a client's coming to you and you're like, you know what, we are ready to go. What are you looking for as like almost like a checklist or a tick box where, okay, this person has everything in place? Like, I think I know, because I think we operate or resonate on a very similar sort of frequency and lifestyle optimization, given your partner's educational background as well. I think we operate in a very similar frequency there. But to the person listening or another coach listening, what do you look for to say, like, yep, this client's good to go? We can start prep.
I think someone who has like done diet phases, growth phases in the past.
Yeah.
I haven't worked with them before. And if I think that, they need to lose 5 to 10 kilos to get into a prep position, if they've hit like the thing of like, oh, I really love this sport, I want to do well in it, I can see myself going further and further in it, great. Then we'll go into our first sort of dieting phase.
Mm-hmm.
I just find out what their education is in
Yeah.
and around nutrition is,
Mm-hmm.
how they can self-sustain themselves, how adherent they are, what they're
Mm-hmm.
training, like how do they actually train
Mm-hmm.
their, and that kind of that will weed out a heap of people as
Oh
well.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just going, okay, well, let's see how you go through a dieting phase. Send me videos of your training.
Yeah.
Let's see how intense you can train in a deficit.
Mm-hmm.
How consistent can you be? Can you go to mum and dad's and have dinner and it not let it impact you?
Mm-hmm.
Can you go out and have a lunch with someone without letting it impact you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So learning those skills of how to be flexible. And then if they complete that, then we can go, all right, cool. We've done this. We are now here. What does your physique actually look like with a bit of fat off it?
Yeah.
Do you need to build now? Do
Yeah.
you need to do another diet phase to get into a better position?
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, we've done this. Now, what's the next thing? So it's not so much like a checklist. It's more just working with someone to start to know. Because as you know, like when you sit down with someone, they might put on a totally different persona.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's
man,
participant bias 101.
you tell me what to do and I'll
Yeah.
do it. That's a red flag for me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
You'll do it until you can't do it, and
yeah.
then you'll just piss off for fucking 12 months.
Yeah.
So
There's very, very few, I think, who can genuinely just say, I will do what you tell me and truly do it, because there's only so many highly neurotic and conscientious types in the world.
absolutely, man. I have a couple of clients who they will literally just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be like, you're like, it blows me away. Like I'm just like, wow, you're like some of the clients I work with, I am super lucky. Like I
Yeah.
truly am. Like they drive me to be a better coach, man,
Mm-hmm.
because they just work so hard. They're just so willing and they want it.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you surround yourself with those people, it just makes you better.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you are a coach, surround yourself with other good coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I have a coach myself. You have people you mentor with as well.
Mm-hmm.
We were working with someone who's better than you or
Mm-hmm.
who knows more than you, even people who don't, like
Yeah.
just chatting to other coaches. Like there's some things that younger coaches have said of like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just you can take little bits of gold from everybody. You don't want to be so arrogant where you think you know it all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big takeaway, and something that I've always tried to pride myself on is that, there's never going to be one mentor. There's never going to be like one person answers all your questions. You're trying to pick and choose from like every single person who's an expert is an expert in their niche of the field, whatever that field is. I don't care if it's physics, chemistry, mathematics, English literature, whatever. They're a subsect of that population that they are an expert in. So when it comes to our game, I'm subscribed to Brods's, Evil Genius platform. I'm subscribed to Luke Lehman's platform. I work with SCAF. I've worked with Dolt. I've worked with Flex. I've worked with, the list of Australians that I can work with that are above me and educated me is starting to shrink, because I'm like, I need to from these people. Now I'm looking overseas. Like, what are these people offering over there? What are they doing differently here? Like the constant seeking of knowledge and information to only make myself better, purely because we're trying to make our clients better. Like, right. Like if you are so arrogant to think that you don't need to be better, or you can't improve your prep phase, or you can't improve your prep strategies or your client strategies, you're wrong. You're setting yourself up for failure as a business, and you're going to do your clients disservice. But like something we also sort of share, I think a very similar sort of premise on, if you will, it's kind of around behavior change and around, and it ties well into prep, because I think a lot of coaches don't quite comprehend just how important behavior change is to that preamble before prepping. Is, understanding how to get a client's behaviors in the right position, removing certain behaviors or working on certain behaviors that might be quite detrimental for them. There's that sort of skill of behavior change, or strategizing, implementing strategies. I guess everyone does it quite differently, but I think me and you kind of resonate in a very similar field. But when we're looking at, we're looking at, say, a new client coming on and they've got a few remaining problems, they've got a few remaining hiccups or behaviors that aren't quite, bodybuilding positive, or, client focus, or result positive, if you will. How do you go about, or what's your sort of like some of the process in which you might look at someone and go, all right, we're going to work on these behaviors. Let's start here, because I know we're both lowest hanging fruit kind of guys.
Yeah, it really just starts with one thing at a time, and lowest hanging fruit, sleep, probably the main one, getting to bed, not just getting your 8 hours, right? But getting to bed at a reasonable hour and trying to get as close to the natural way of doing things of like, we go down when the sun goes down and we come up when the sun goes up. Like, people will say, oh, I'm just not a morning person. Well, we're all not that biologically different. So you may not be right now, but that's probably something that you can learn over time. So regular bedtimes, waking up at regular times, eating at regular times. Same thing goes if people skip meals, set alarms on your phone. Over time, your body will be like, oh, it's 12 o'clock. No wonder I'm hungry, because that's what time I always eat. So little things. If someone is, say they're going in, they want to do a prep or a diet phase or whatever it is, and things have been suboptimal because the same behavior keeps coming. I've just become more honest with it in the fact of, hey, this is what you keep doing. This is why you're not getting anywhere. Are you actually ready to do this, or do you just think you are? And just having that conversation, and that generally leads you somewhere. Oh, well, actually, this is happening behind the scenes. Oh, well, actually, I get something, something is a red flag around a certain behavior. Okay, well, listen, let's not put the pressure on at the moment. Let's take the foot off the gas and let's just reassess. Let's not worry about everything all at once. What is the first thing that we need to do? Boom. Then we tackle that. Once we hit that, then we move on to the next one and the next one. And then once they're ready, sure. If it's like a red flag of like, this is totally out of my sort of area, listen, this is what I think you should do. I think you should go speak to someone, do what you need to do. When you're in a better, if you want to keep working together whilst we work with this other allied health professional, great. If not, you can always come back when you're ready. And just, it's easy for, I guess, myself being a little bit more established than a coach who's, oh, shit, I'm running out of sessions. Like, I need to keep people, it's very easy for me to sit up on my high horse and be like, hey, you should do this. Like, I've been in those positions where, fuck, I've got X amount of sessions and this isn't even going to cover the rent. Do you know what I mean? Like that, being able to put the client first will only serve you better in the long run for your business, because they can see that you've gone, hey, this isn't working right now. This might be a better option. If you still want to work together, great. But if you need to just go and solely see this person, then this is what you need to do. It's no different from if you have a client who needs some specialty in rehabilitation. Right? If you're banging the drum and nothing's happening and they're continuing to be in pain, then that's not working. You need to outsource that and refer on. And if you do, the clinician will be super grateful and they're going to send them back to you anyway. And then you will be able to learn from that as well. That's the other thing. You can learn by what someone else does with your client and still work together with them. So that's the way I kind of approach it. A bit of a long-winded, but I guess there's never really a set answer for that. It's basically it's solely individual.
There's you can't short answer something as important as that. I feel like, especially when, a lot of the chat's heavily been bodybuilding, because you are obviously starting to really excel and take off in that direction. But just in the general sense, people need to comprehend that, they think of coaching as if like, I sign up to a coach, I make instant results, I get way more jacked, I start training really hard. But we is more of a holistic practice, because I truly believe there's a big difference between just programming coaches, just nutrition coaches, and us who kind of like evoke everything in lifestyle as well, right? Like we kind of combine everything. We're looking at, okay, what's holding you back from that result? What is the limiting factor of that result? If this is the case, or if this is, something that's going to hold you back, we need to address X, Y, Z. Then you watch the results take off. And that's something that a lot of people are almost either afraid or scared to pay for. And they think that, well, I watched my girlfriend do this and she exploded in 12 weeks. Like, yeah, but she's been training 2 years. She is a very highly functioning, highly conscientious, borderline, somewhat neurotic personality type that is dedicated to numbers and projections and trajectory and progression metrics. So it's easy for her. You, however, have 3 kids, and you've got a full-time job and a husband who works away, and he does this when he finally gets back. He's also got a spare time job as well, and all these sort of things that come up. The likelihood is that we're gonna have to start with you a little bit differently. You're not probably going to get a 6-day booty building program. You're probably going to get 3 days, be consistent in nutrition. Let's try and get 7 hours sleep instead of 6.2. And that, like, as I said, I knew, me knowing you and you know me, was going to be a very similar sort of progression model we look for in behavior change, but working on the lowest hanging thing, the smallest thing first, because I find, and you'll probably agree, that people struggle to comprehend how such a little change can make significant a difference. And that needs to be understood, because if we build up 5, 10 of those small changes over time, the result does this, but it takes time to build that. And that's realistically where our coaching practice almost lies, is that it's not straight into chicken, broccoli, and rice, and here's a 20-week program, and I'll send you a video every 2 weeks or a WhatsApp message. No, we need to tweak these things here, because if we get this right in the next 6 months, then the 12 months after that is fucking this.
Yeah, you're just building on habits over time. But it's the same thing with, like, young guys are probably the worst for it. They come and see us and they're training 6 days a week and they're like, oh, I'm eating so much food, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, when you strip them back to 4 days and you just get them consistently eating, they just grow and they're like, oh, I'm doing less. Like, less is more sometimes. And I can't train 6 days hard. You know what I mean? Like, not many people can, unless you've got that real Arnold lifestyle of, hey, I get to go to the gym. I'm going to go sit in the park.
Eat, train.
Legit,
Your only stressor is the next female in your bed or the next guy you hit on. Cool.
100%. Like, the bucket analogy is like, how full is your bucket? Everybody's bucket's different, Sunburn analogy as well. If you got a really low stress job, then you can tan for ages, doesn't matter. But if you've got 10 hours of work, 12 hours of work a day, you're not going to do 4 days a week. You're going to do 3. And just minimum volume, what can you work towards, and then build from there.
Yeah. And like, just to even complement that as a statement, my entire off season so far has been 4 days a week. I asked Gaff to change some things. He's like, all right, I put my shoulders and my hamstrings at the start of my workout. That was it. That was the change, right? So we got
some priority stuff.
Just specificity principle, right? Like, okay, so we're trying to focus this. You're going to get a bit softer, and we're going to keep pushing the growth. Because I was like, oh, I'm probably due for a tighten up phase. He's like, no, we've got another 4 to 6 weeks. I'm like, fuck, okay. And he's like, all right, we'll change it up, and I want to see your hamstrings grow and your shoulders. Okay, so shoulders at the start of your workout, hamstrings at the start of your leg workout. That's it. But it's 4 days, and it now gives me more time for my business, for client work, for study, for uni, because that, as you said, if I really objectively step back, though I don't feel stressed because I love what I do, the stress quota, if you will, or quota, is actually quite high. If I'm not mentally aware of that, and if I'm not enjoying what I do, the second that becomes hard, fuck that, that limits my progression rate. That limits my ability to grow and train and do everything else.
I think a lot of people don't understand that as well. Like, we can love what we do, but if we're doing so much of it, like, I love what I do. I'm super lucky to do what I do and earn a living from it. But if I'm working 7 days a week, you run out of gas. Your ability to train is ridiculous. And when if you're running tons of sessions, and me personally, because I've been trying to take my training more seriously, I'm trying to pull back sessions. I'm trying to get more hours in the day. I'm trying to get more days off during the week, because I've done 6.5 days, 6 days, sometimes 7 days, pretty much since I was 27 and I was at uni. You know what I mean? Like, full-time work, full-time uni. And it's of the injuries that I've picked up are just so silly because of what I've done outside of the gym, not even in the gym. Or I've thought, hey, I can still continue to train the way I currently am, yet I have, even though I love what I do and I'm moving forward in my life, it doesn't mean that that's not stress in my bucket.
Yeah. It's, as a concept, I think people really misunderstand or misappreciate stress for what it is. Like, we look at stress, obviously I wrote the book, so listeners, if you want to go over read the stress bucket, the ancient systems in a modern world that I wrote as an ebook, you can go download it. It's free, because I found it's so important and imperative to understand that stress isn't a negative, but we need to understand what it is. I think people have people have misattributed to stress being like, oh, my boss is yelling at me, or like I'm stuck in traffic, and that's I'm fighting with my wife, and that's all stress is. Completely neglecting the physiological responses of stress as well, or the physiological stimulators of stress. Training capacity, your physical demands of your job, having 2 or 3 kids, economic situations, all these things that
Social life.
social life, expectations of social life.
You as a person, if you're more introverted, you
Yeah.
gain more energy being alone. If you're more extroverted, you gain energy elsewhere. But with those extroverts, it's almost like a fine line. They're like so good until they're not, and then it's like clip. So being aware of that sort of stuff, overcommitting yourself on weekends, overcommitting yourself on school nights, I call them school.
Yeah, doesn't everyone?
Like, you coming out? No, man, it's a school night.
Yeah, bro, what are you talking about? I've got cheesy feet at 6.
Absolutely. So yeah, those sort of things, they all play into it. They all play into it. Even we bought a puppy, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I love my dog. I love my dog.
big laughter man though.
Yeah. He's a stress. Do you know what I mean? And there's some nights where you don't get as much sleep, and therefore my training the next day will be slightly affected. You can't be so dishonest with yourself and so emotional with your own training, your own results, that you fully just can't look back. And that's why it's so important to get a coach, even as a coach, is because when it's yourself, it is emotional. I don't care how logical you are as a person. And Benny, you're a pretty logical guy.
Yeah.
You said to your coach, hey, I'm due for a tighten up phase. And he's like, nah.
Yep.
Because it was like, oh, you're probably like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little fluffy.
Yeah, I was literally with a gold medal on my neck on stage 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to feel a bit soft. Like, oh, can we tighten back up? He's like, don't you want to win in 2 years' time? I was like, yeah, I do. You're right.
Yeah.
But that's such a, like, because people think like we push these concepts, or as coaches, we sell this because, we want to make money, or we're trying to take your money. No, it's because it's true. Like the data and evidence and research is out there to coach yourself. The information is not hard. I give this shit away for free 90% of the time. Fucking 1.6 to 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram, 0.7 to 1.3 grams of fat per kilogram, 5 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram, depending on training intensity. Aim for 35 to 40 calories per kilogram of body defined maintenance. That sort of shit is not complex. We can fucking work that out as a piece of piss. You want to do an aggressive tighten up? Drop 40% of your calories from maintenance. Great. There you go. Boom, you're done. The problem is, though, you're not going to do that objectively. You're not going to do that for long periods of time. You're not going to avoid social events because you've got a diet phase to stick to. When you're accountable to someone else and you're getting that system in place and you're paying for a result, there is an emotional subjective buy-in, because you're like, you know what? I actually need to be held accountable to someone else. And I really want this, and I really don't want to waste my money. So I'm going to do it. Whereas, like you said, if we coach ourselves, or we try to just take that on, think, there's always someone from a consult, or a lead will get in a gym or a consult call, and they're like, oh, I think I'll just see how I go on my own first. And I'm like, I know how you're going to go. We've all been there. But the entire premise of our business is to shortchange the distance from your A to B, because I know for you, if you're not with me or by yourself, judging by the language you're using and your level of education, is going to be 5 years. With me, that's 12 months. Because you don't have to waste the time figuring the things out that I did. That's why we exist, right?
And the nuance that goes with that.
Yeah, exactly. They're complexities, but they're not complex. Like, it ends up being really simple if we just knuckle down on it and get it right. It's like, as you sort of said before, strip it back, pull back the volume, pull back the extra shit, the non-necessary stuff. Oh, I'm doing this at 11 o'clock at night and I didn't miss my session. I managed to tick this, and I've got 6 days a week, and I'm doing arms with every session. I'm doing legs, back, shoulders, chest. Okay, man, but I could grow you on 4 days with half of that food and more sleep. Like,
and just more intensity with your training. Like,
yeah.
When it comes to building muscle, it's, we get so caught up in, and this is coming from someone who loves the sciencey sort of stuff. We do get very caught up in like, oh, is that a 2 RIR?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why filming yourself in the gym is so good. And it's hard for new clients to do it, and especially those that aren't super confident in the gym. But being able to watch yourself train and then like get off the machine or whatever it is that you're doing, rate it in your head, watch the video, and then go, in your head, you might be like, oh, that was pretty close to failure. And then you look at the video, you're like, man, I didn't even slow down.
Yeah.
Not once.
Yeah.
I took one deep breath at the top on one of them, and then the rest I was just pumping them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can probably work a little harder here.
Yeah.
That's probably where people get, stuck in the high volume, junk volume stuff.
Yes,
They're
absolutely.
just not training as hard as they should be. And,
Mhm.
an 8 RPE is tough.
Yep.
When you're, or a 2 RR or whatever sort of scale that you use,
Mhm.
when you're digging deep and you're pushing, like an 8's hard.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be.
7 is hard.
Yeah.
Do you know, like even really a 6, like it's still pretty hard.
That's where I find I get a little bit frustrated. I don't know about you, but this is where I find in the evidence-based crowd, and we're amongst that. So it's not even a dig at anyone else, like it's myself.
Oh, I fell in the trap with my clients, man.
It's
100%.
the polarization of like, we make these statements or the research comes out and it's like, oh, but the research says that there's no extra benefit beyond 2 RAR when it comes to stimulating hypertrophy and actually forcing muscle to grow. It's like, yeah, but when you say that to the general person, all they hear is, I don't need to train anywhere near as hard. But already that probably 10 of those clients that you have aren't training hard to begin with. So you're saying 2 RAR is fine for you. They were already training at a 3 or 4 RAR. They weren't even close to 2. Now they go, oh, that in my head was close to failure. I can work back from that. And you're getting a 5 RAR or a 5 RPE. And you're like, you know why it takes 60, 70, 80 extra sets for you to grow? Is because we've taken that little piece of information and missed the nuance of, but do you actually even understand what 2 RAR is? Because realistically, you don't. So, being able to take that evidence and apply it to your client at the right time. But I find a lot of people get caught up in that almost polarization of the fact that, well, the research is this, and I'm an evidence-based guy, so I've got to do it. I can't have my clients go to failure. Let them go to failure because, well, in my opinion, let them go to failure because the reality is that failure isn't failure. For very not even subpar, let's say novice and intermediate clients.
Oh, absolutely, man.
That's not even close to actual true 2 RAR.
Absolutely. And this is why like someone like John Jewett, I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Because he is someone who has all the degrees, he has all the badges, but even he is like, it can't tell us everything. And you have to look at what people have done in the past. And there's bits of gold. And then from what from your learning with education and books, you can see of why certain systems would work from the bro guys, like, and they would do things that not the evidence-based guys would probably look at. You know what I mean? But I like John because he's like, well, there might be something to that. Why is that? We may not have the reason to back it up, but there is something there because people are doing it and they're winning.
Yeah. And that's a premise I've taken from Peterson is always listen with the intent that someone has something to teach you. That was one of his key values, that his stories, one of his 12 points of life. And you take that to training, but with the premise that, because we know that research isn't always up to date, right? Like, sorry, the evidence and the science isn't always current. It's not, it takes how long to develop a meta-analysis. It takes how long to find the research and fund the research, do the controlled studies, and then actually get an assessment on all the controlled studies and put out the research. There isn't enough at the time to go, oh, but we're up to date with the guys that are doing this and they're wrong. No. The likelihood is that we're catching up to where they were doing the bro stuff. It's just that they tried and failed. And so they're in the trenches. Anecdotal evidence was, I did this, it didn't work, so I did this. I did this, it didn't work, so I did this. And they start to get a result. That doesn't mean they're wrong just because the evidence is over here. It just means it hasn't caught up or the potential to digest it isn't quite there. So we can take from them and go, well, what are they doing? What is the potential if we strip away all the fancy bullshit and their bro terms? What are they doing that's working? How can I apply that to my guys in conjunction with the evidence?
And like health science is a very new science. Do you know what I mean? It's really in its infancy compared to what other sciences have done in the past. Do you know? And not only that, it's just gaining more momentum because there's beginning to be more money. There's people who are very gifted intellectually who are like, I love training and I just want to do this because not only can I now make a living of it, but I can love it. Where before they might have been like, there's nothing there, I'll go and do, medical research or whatever it is. So that the area with health science is also increasing, and there's more money going into that. There's more funding and more private funding from some of these bigger guys.
Yeah, and I think the other nuance to it as well, like you said, we touched on there in other fields, is when we look at like, you know, sample basing from, say, an astrophysicist or like chemistry or a biology, they can run a genetic sample 100,000 times in a scenario. They can like take that. What is this? If we test this out, like, you know, they have like the software that can literally run like 100,000 different variations of this gene strand. If we did this, what would happen? Their case study and sample size can be so big. We have at the moment in sports and exercise, sports, exercise, and nutritional science, you get population samples of 10 to 15 people. And we're looking at that and going, that's significant. That would barely touch the sides if we put that into another field's realm of science. Yeah. And that's the part I think that people miss in the nuance. And this is why I get so excited when I get to do subjects like data and research. Like this semester for me, a big subject I've got is data and research analysis. And it's teaching the different ways to do strata sampling and over testing, F ratios between group, within group. You start to see how insignificant exercise and nutritional research samples actually are, contrast to other fields. And so when someone's like, this is significant, I'm like, but to what population? Because that was 14 to 20 80-year-old men with barely trained history and a low protein intake. And now all of a sudden you've given them some protein and they're responding really well. Like, yeah, 0.8 grams for them is fucking huge because they were doing 0.2. That doesn't mean that you go to the average bloke who's training and go, you only need 0.8 grams of protein. Probably going to need more than that. Like, we have to be able to dissect that and understand it. But, you know, I think because we know people who read, like research readers are the abstract, the discussion, the conclusion. That's really what they read. And so they take the answer they wanted to find. I'm good to go. But I think
you're stretching there with people going into the discussion there too.
Yeah, I was being generous. I've been that first time study reader, and you're like, what does this say? But
what's the last two sentences say?
Where's the result and does it match what I wanted to find?
Yeah.
But it, you know, and that I think a true evidence-based application. And, you know, I know in your educational background, you're very much similar. Myself, like Scaff, when I talk to these people, Dalton, these educational coaches, being able to take the research and being able to break it down, understand it, what is current, what is being said, sure, but then being able to apply it to the right population, or, you know, not get too polarized by, you know, I've got to teach my clients 2 RER. I think a better explanation is I've got to teach my clients failure. I've got to teach them it's safe to fail under a bar, under a machine, on a bar path, on a mechanism or a moment arm. They can get under this mechanic and fail safely without being hurt, and push past that, because we have that protection. We have the stretch reflex. We have protective mechanisms where the body's like, don't do that. We can get them safely to execute it. That's a big difference.
You also need to do a bit of that to understand what a baseline is. Like, if you don't know what a 10 is, you don't know what an 8 is.
Exactly.
So without that baseline, it's the same with nutrition. Like, you need to understand where your baselines are. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts.
Yeah, you'll probably do something similar, but I often, and a lot of my guys will probably hear this and agree, is they've noticed different pushes of intensity with me when it comes to nutrition. We're going to go through a heavier degree of deficit. We're going to go through a heavier degree of surplus, and each time find out how you respond, or how did you feel with it? How aggressive was it? Were you know, what was your mental thoughts at this point? You know, there's certain points where I've tipped some of the younger guys who've done, like, you know, 6 to 8 weeks of an aggressive phase, maybe only one diet break in there. Okay, what did your head do at this point? Oh, I just started to start thinking about food. Okay, so we got past that. You know, last time you didn't do that. This time you did. So we're now leaner. The body's starting to play with those hormones that it didn't play with before. Ghrelin and leptin are inverting, and they're starting to switch it up. And you're mentally starting to correlate things with food now, and hunger cravings and memory recall. Okay, we didn't have that last time. But, you know, being able to progress through that and trial those things out and go, you know, we're going to go just below this again next time. We're going to go just above that next time. We're going to go a little bit softer or a little bit heavier on food. You kind of have to find those baselines for the client to go through.
Even before you begin things like prep, understanding that stuff is so you can go, all right, well, you know, how are we going to tackle this? What do you like? Some people love going out of the blocks hard. Some people don't like it at all. So what does the individual enjoy? You know, me, I'd rather get some stuff off at the start. You know, push a bit harder when you've got the body fat there, where those negative adaptations are less likely to actually be there, and then you can hopefully cruise through to the end.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully everything, the stars align and the moon and the sun don't align, don't cross over, and it eclipses the fucking everyone's life.
Yeah.
But yeah, that ends up being an important point, is that you're able to know what the person enjoys. Like the biggest thing I think a lot of coaches miss, whether you're a client or a coach, is if you're a client, does your coach want you to enjoy what you're doing? If you're a coach, are you asking what your client actually likes? Being client centric in your approach, that, do you like this, what we're doing? Do you like how it's being done? Are you enjoying this process? Because that goes a long way to making sure a client sustains what they're trying to achieve, right?
Absolutely. Even like sitting down and doing food with the client,
mm-hmm.
working out options with the client. If you can problem solve together,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't end up being this dictatorship.
Yes.
It's a joint decision that you've both come with together.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even take that further with clients. You can even use it as a teaching way. What do you think you should add in here?
Yep.
If we've got this and this, well, what else should we add?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need anything? Oh no, I'm actually pretty happy with that. All right, cool. It doesn't need to be like your input. It just ask them what they think about it.
Yeah, it's a weird concept to involve the person paying you for a service, that they have an idea of how that service might go, or like what they want to do, or like you said, use that as a teaching experience. I'll use baseline meal plans for people. Like one of my girls told me without question, I'm not tracking my food, not going to do anything but a meal plan. I'll just eat the same shit because I'm a nurse and I do XYZ and I work this many hours. I'm like, fair enough. Bit by bit, though, I was like, okay, so I'm going to up your carbs. What do you reckon is a good carb here? Oh, I can do some more rice crackers. Okay, so we've got our baseline of macronutrients, micronutrients. Okay, so what do you think the next increase should be? Oh, probably some more fats because I want to have some peanut butter. Okay, cool. That's fair enough.
Becomes so intuitive.
Adamant she wasn't going to eat Nutella because it was going to make her like scoff and binge and break character and all that sort of stuff. Oh, I reckon I could probably have some Nutella. I'm feeling pretty good. Can we try for a week? Absolutely, we can. You tell me how it goes. Give me the subjective feedback. I don't know if you don't tell me. Lo and behold, she's like, I fucking love Nutella. Like, I can't believe I have a meal plan that has Nutella in it. I've avoided it for 5 years. That to me is like, yeah, you can tell me you don't want a duality of coaching partnership, but I'm going to evoke it out of you as best I can, because that's how you learn. And when you walk away from me, you're like, I'm happy with this. That to me is like one of the biggest things I want is, the walking marketing, like the walking billboard is basically a client that left happy with the results and is happy to talk about you to other people.
And your referral network will represent that. If you have people who are like, oh, I'm bringing so-and-so, oh, I'm a friend with so-and-so, that, or if they're like, oh, hey, you need to go see Benny because he's the man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that, that you've really hit those promising points with that person and you've made real change.
And I've started to notice that even in like your socials, like I can see how many people now at Strength are coming to you, or like people that I used to see at Strength Century that I'm like, they're working with you now. So it's obviously they waited, they loomed in the background a bit, or, what's that next level result going to look like on that person? Am I the right fit for Tom? And now I'm starting to see like the shares are, oh, I saw that guy there. I saw that guy there. He wasn't with Tom at the time. And you start to get that.
As well as that, like, am I the right fit for that person?
Yeah.
Because there's just sometimes you don't mesh with someone.
Yeah,
and it's not on the person, it's not on you. It's just it wasn't meant to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. That happens. It's okay. And it's okay to be like, hey, Tom, thanks for what you did, but I'm not enjoying the process. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine, because sometimes it doesn't work. You don't connect and you have to connect with your coach. I do feel that. I do feel like you have to have that ability to have a bit of back and forth, to have a conversation, to feel comfortable enough to talk to them about what's actually happening. Do you know what I mean? If the client doesn't feel comfortable enough to say, hey, Tom, like I'm feeling smashed from the amount of volume that I'm doing or the intensity, or I'm starving at this time, I want to know those things. And that helps me do a better job.
Or even below that, like if you don't have that level of comfortability as a coach and client, imagine trying to evoke from them things that are causing mental stress or relationship problems or lifestyle issues, or like, I was seeing this guy, we were sleeping together and this happened, and or this has now happened. Imagine trying to get those conversations out of a client who's all of a sudden not sleeping. Like you notice it goes from 8 hours to 5, or fucking my anxiety levels are up here and now they're down here and I can't sleep and I can't journal. It's like, well, imagine trying to get those conversations out of a client that doesn't even trust you to tell you about training volume.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Plays a like that reciprocal relationship, I think, becomes so important. And it's important, I think, as coaches, just to touch on that a little bit further, we have to be comfortable to say we don't suit someone as well. Like, if I
Yeah.
have someone come to me that says, I am adamant I don't track things, to me, I can't work with you. Like, don't get me wrong, I have a million and one ways to skin a cat. I, of all people, have, you know, the therapy practices, the behavioral change practices. I've studied it as much of it as I can. But when it comes to getting a high performance result, to me, there are metrics that are bare minimum
Yeah.
because I need to know. Like, you know, coaches who aren't even aware of what a female's menstrual phase looks like or what are the regularities of their menstrual responses. If you aren't conscious of that and you get a mentally unsecure female, oh, I've jumped 2 kilos this week. Oh, don't know what's going on. Fuck, let's just pull down food. Versus, oh yeah, that's a standard phase of your luteal phase. We understand that you're going to increase, you retain here, you bloat a little bit, hormones regulate back out, it flushes out, you go to the bathroom and your food volume comes back and you're good. Cool, no stress. That to me separates the difference of a general, I would say a general population client where, okay, let's use some basic strategies to make sure you're okay. But if you're coming to me to work at a high rank, at a high level and optimize things, and you know your adamant tracking isn't for you, or metric understanding isn't for you, I'm probably not your coach. And I'm going to say that. I will ask you to do these things. And if that's going to cause problems, I know some other people who don't work in that realm or don't work this way that you can go see. And I'll have a list of coaches that I'll refer out to. But
And there's nothing wrong with that.
exactly.
Because you're just setting them up for success or what they're looking for. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone's got a timeline that they want to hit, then that's just the standard.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? If I've got a saving goal that I need to hit, guess what? I'm tracking my money in and my money out.
Yes.
It's a very simple concept. And if you have a timeline goal, like that is the way I work. Like some people may not like that, and that's fine. That's cool. You go and do it another way.
Yeah.
I try to be as flexible as I can with people, and I try to help build them, pull them in decision making. But sometimes like you have to put your coach's hat on and say, well, no, this is the standard and this is what I need. You know, I've worn many hats throughout my career.
Yeah.
And being too flexible, being too soft with people has definitely been something that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a reflection on them. That's purely on me because I want them to have a good experience. So I'm trying to cater to their needs, not what they need to do.
Yes.
You know, and you know, you'll find when you've been doing this long enough, your role forever evolves.
Yes.
You know, and it's only with time, confidence, knowing what works that you can actually then be like, hey, this isn't working. Like go and see someone else or go to someone because they're awesome at that. I'm not.
Yeah, they're suited to that. Like it should be, I think it almost becomes a potential referral system because let's say I admit to X client or consult or lead that I don't work that way. And it's okay that you want to do that. Don't think that I'm thinking you're a bad person. Don't think that, like, I don't want you to walk away saying that my system is bad, but I don't want you thinking I think yours is bad.
Yeah.
But let's say that client now goes away and they have a friend who's like, I want to compete. You know, I love numbers. I love metrics. I love programming. That person's going to go, oh, that coach that I went and spoke to that I wasn't suited to, he does that. That's what he does. You should go talk to him. Like, he seemed like a good fit for you. If you have that positive experience or that honesty of reflection and accountability as a coach to that lead, it opens them up to be like, oh, but that friend that did ask me about coaches, they'd suit. They'd go well together. That to me is like where that honesty matters as well, is that not only just put the client first, it suits your business.
And again, like we are more established. So it's again, we're a little bit on our high horses being like,
oh,
hey,
absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I've been on the gym floor, like looking for clients. Like, I've done that, man. Like I've done that. So, you know, don't feel bad if you haven't done that. And myself, I'm not perfect. You know, there's times where things haven't worked out with clients and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, we want to be able to skin every cat, right? Like when we start out, we're like, you know, I'd love to work with this type of athlete. I'd love to work with this type of client. I'd love to work with this gen pop. I want to do these sort of things. And I think a really great cue as a starting business is generalize.
Yeah.
Find out where you lay, find out who you enjoy coaching, find out what you suit. And then from there, you start to go, you know what? I didn't like the mums and bubs side. I like the dads and the bros, or I didn't suit the guys who want to grunt and cuss while they train, but I did enjoy the sprinters. Cool. Like, sweet. You're starting to figure those things out. But again, once you have that ability or that bit more comfortability and you can specialize, it becomes a lot easier to build that certainty in yourself, right? To say, you know what, you're not for me. I think you might go see this person. And, being able to network as a coach, I think is important. Like, me and you in the networking we've had, me and
Yeah,
Scott, me and
absolutely.
Dalton, I've sent people to coaches that are just not me because
Yeah.
I'm like, as soon as it becomes like powerlifting, I can get you strong as fuck, I can get you jacked, but I don't know how the fuck a powerlifting meet works. One of the greatest colleagues I have and mentors in my fucking network is a well-renowned powerlifting coach. Guess what? Go see him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that to me is just a logical conclusion you know, when you're established, sure, when you're starting out, if you want to learn more about powerlifting, by all means, like, I'll find the answers for you. I don't know them. But when you're a bit more certain in what you do, and you're probably going to find this too, especially as you start to get more involved in bodybuilding, you start to get more down that track, you'll start taking on the extra courses, the extra information, you'll do all that extra stuff. You're like, you know what? I am the data bodybuilding coach. I love that shit. I'll take you on for that. You don't want to track shit? Cool beans, all good. Here's this part of the business, or here's this person. We'll go that way. And I think, it just comes from that position of building that confidence in what you do, right? But I see it serving your business in the long run when you're in that position to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And like I still work with, Gen Pop still makes up a fair chunk of,
Same.
like you're never going to fully just be, unless you're like the pinnacle. And there are guys obviously out there that do that, but over time it slowly changes. And I like working with a variety of different people. I find it interesting. It's, if you understand nutrition and energy systems, generally you can do a pretty good job at coaching a lot of different things.
Just make sure you teach all your clients a Krebs cycle.
Yeah. Is that with an R or a... That's an old flashback joke, that one.
One last thing I kind of want to touch on, because this is, again, we're speaking, I think, quite heavily between the pair of us to upcoming coaches or to new coaches. I think that's going to be a large part of this listen. Is you're 10 years in this game, and I would say now is around the time where you're really niching and you're narrowing in on, like, these are the people I'm enjoying working with. I've got this skill that I'm figuring out. I've got this niche that I'm scaling or scaffolding on, and I'm starting to get results here. My influx of clients is quite consistent. I haven't known you for all of the 10 years prior to that. I've known you for a good 3 or 4, where even now I'm recognizing this is probably the explosion of your business. What would you say is the advice to those early phase coaches who think they should have 30, 40, 50 clients every single week from like year one?
Man, it's time. Like we were speaking about this sort of off camera, is like, it's time, and it's time, it's upskilling, and it's results.
Yeah.
Realistically, that's what it is. Like, if you love this game and you love coaching and you want to be good at it, go and learn some stuff.
Yeah.
Go and get a coach, go to uni, do courses, do whatever you need to do to build it up. Understand that you're going to be like, unless you're the top sort of 5 to 10% of the population and you look great when you first start doing it and you can get your rig off and whatever. Like, I'm not that. I've never been that type of coach. I've never wanted to be that type of coach. If you look at my social media, it's predominantly clients. It's barely anything of me, because I'm not the special one in this relationship. My clients are. But it's time. Give yourself time to actually learn. Give yourself time to work with different types of people. Once you find that bits of gold, start adding to your own system. Start putting things into processes, systems. There's so much you can do, but you've got to give yourself time. You've got to get some knowledge, and then you've got to get the result. Because if you can wait your time, you can get all the credentials, but then if you can't get people across the line, it's just not gonna work. You've got no social proof, and unfortunately, in today's age with social media, you have to show that you can get people from A to B. And that's what matters. And that's why you see people who don't have any knowledge just rattling off stuff. If they can get people results, they'll get heaps of clients. Sure, their turnover rate and their retention rates might be dog shit, but because they've got that social proof, they'll just continue to get
Yeah.
people in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I completely agree. I think there are the three main premises, I guess, to really succeed or take off, and could have just bide your time and give yourself that realistic expectation. And it's, it's no different to a prep. It's no different to training. If this is your first prep, you've only been training for a year, you're setting a real expectation by saying, this is just to see where I land. Yeah. If I'm cut out for this sport, if I have the passion for it. If you're going into that as like, year one, I'm going to fucking a pro card, you're probably setting yourself up failure. Genetic outliers exist, sure, but even Nick Walker and Sean Calridio look like a ton of dicks when they first started, and that was them. They had the genetic potential to be where they are, the top 3 in the world. Absolutely. But when you look at where they started, you've got to bide your time and put the work in and grow and put the effort in and be consistent and show up. So, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with those three things, because everyone gets into the minutiae and the details, and don't get me wrong, matter marketing is taken off, and we're going to work in that realm because we know how important that is, that people need to be able to operate that way and understand the marketing trends and systems. But the thing is, you need to have the content to market, and that content is results. You need to have clients out there sharing what you do, and that they're happy with you and that it's working. And the only way to do that is get those clients results to tell their other friends to work with you to get them results. So,
my whole business was built off referrals when I first started. I didn't do anything social media. It was all, I'll go and see Tom. He'll fix. Do you know what I mean? It was all, I'll go and see him. Go and like that. And that's why that speaks volumes about what it is that you do, because you don't need 10,000 Instagram followers to have a successful business.
Yeah.
You can have a successful business just by being number one in your gym, in your area, because that's really enough. It should be enough. And then from there, if you want to grow, then you have to push further.
Yeah.
But if you want to be good where you are, you've just got to get your hands on people, understand them, and be able to get them across the line and be a problem solver.
Yes. And some of my younger guys, I kind of take on like a mentoring role with them as well as coaching, where they're getting into the coaching game themselves. And I try to drill into them, like, stop looking at online as the only answer. Stop looking at online coaching as like the be all end all. If you truly love coaching people, being in the gym is fun. Like,
it is, yeah.
You get to be in the gym with a different variety of people, especially if it's like a generalized demographic. Like, you don't have an elite athlete demographic, or it's like a sports specific gym. You're like at Anytime, a Genesis, even you guys, you get a variety of people. So, be okay with getting in front of people and working at the gym. Stop seeking to use them to move out. Like, if you're truly happy about coaching, the gym can be fucking fun. Like, I went back to it. I found a way that I can get back into coaching face to face. I'm willing to do that because I was like, I missed pushing someone to those extra 5 reps or those extra 3 reps, and listening to them always cry and bitch and moan through that set they didn't want to do. But like, I'm there to push them because they know I'm watching and they know I'm going to kick their ass and make them do it. So, that big thing for me was get amongst your demographic and understand them. Stop thinking that you've got to find all the elite athletes, because even us at our level, we don't have 50, 60, 70 elite athletes. It's probably 10 to 15, maybe 20%.
And even some of the best teams out there, they don't have 40 athletes going into seasons.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Exactly.
Their client list is going to be a variety of people.
Because, we get that period where a really good coaching system, you're handling off seasons and on seasons.
Yeah.
And you're building someone up over time. Like we said, getting all those skills established, taking that year or 2 to get them ready. Then you've got the ones who are coming up. And guess what? Once they're up, if they're keen to do this again, you're probably going to send them away for a month. Hey, go enjoy life. Go do some other things. Then we come back, we execute off season, and we get ready to use that feedback the judge gave us to go again.
Yeah.
Like that is how, a good coaching system works. You're not going to have 50 season A clients. And if you do, I would challenge you shouldn't.
Yeah. And you'd have to look at turnover rates. You'd have to look at, or like if someone's coming to see you and they do their prep and then they finish with you straight after.
Yep.
Probably a good sign that things weren't as optimal.
Yeah. Like a big thing is, if we look at, I guess, marketing as coaching, is you don't need to find new clients if you keep the ones you've got.
100%, man. 100%.
Like, I see these people brag, like, I've worked with 10,000 athletes and I got 10,000 different results. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
You have 10,000 fucking athletes or clients or turnovers. Like, unless you have 100 coaches under you in a system or a network, that's a fucking lot of people that are deciding your 6-week strategy or your 12-week strategy or whatever prep you did is not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they caught a fish and it was this big.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly right. But mate, I appreciate your time. I mean, we could ramble on this shit all day. I've got one final question I've been hitting a few nutrition coaches with is what are your 3 favorite myths amongst the nutrition game that you really wish were gone or didn't exist?
Oh, the carnivore diet.
Yep.
That's probably the one. Carbs still make you fat.
Yep.
I still can't believe that's a thing. It's 2023, guys. Like, come on. Third one. Third one. Oh, it's got to be diet soda, right? It's got to be diet Coke, diet
Oh,
Pepsi.
Spartane. Cancerous.
Yeah,
Get rid of it.
yeah. I think they're like, guys. It's 2023. Come on, eat a fruit, eat a vegetable.
Yeah.
Come on, like, god damn.
I had this conversation with Eric. I had a good laugh about, especially in America, obviously, like their soda
Oh,
economics over there. And I was like, I find it so funny that people can consume 10 gallons of soda. That's not a big deal. We say have swap some of that for some diet soda, and it's like cancer. I'm like,
oh, yeah, yeah.
that blows
Um,
my fucking mind.
Broccoli has an inbuilt defense mechanism that will kill you from the inside out. Like, what? Let's take
Oh,
one mechanism and just blow it out of proportion. Go on, do it. I don't even care. Tell it.
how to read some fucking single point studies and go, oh, that's gonna kill someone.
God, crazy.
But mate, to wrap it up, you've given me a fair chunky time. I appreciate you. Where can we find you? Details, like medias, new business.
Social media. The dot performance dot formula is our brand. That's where myself, Jazz, Tash, and our other coaches, Bill and Tiles. You can find us on there. You can find us at theperformanceformula.com, or you can find me at tomfox.tpf.
Awesome. Mate, I appreciate your time. It's been an absolute ripper having a chat. I knew we're going to have some very good intersectionality, but it's always fun just to have different points of views and some banter amongst our game.
That's the one.
All right, mate. I appreciate it, and I'll chat to you soon.